Greetings everyone, my name is Dr. Jason Freeman. I'd like to welcome you all to my channel. Now I'm assuming based on the fact that you clicked on this video with the thumbnail that it had that you've already seen the movie. Now if you haven't seen the movie, what are you waiting for? This movie was great. Lupita had a great performance, Joseph Quinn had a great performance, Djimon Hounsou, for the little part that he's in there, has a great performance. Alice Wolf, who plays the nurse, great. Nico and Schnitzel, the two cats who play Frodo, great. Michael Sarnoski, who took over the Quiet Place franchise from John Krasinski, did a great job telling this story. But what I want to do with this particular video is to identify some of the key themes that you may or may not have noticed throughout this film. Theme number one, Sam and Frodo's unexpected journey. Lupita Nyong'o's character in this film is named Sam, which is short for Samira, and of course her cat is named Frodo. Now we begin the film with Sam in hospice. She's dying of terminal cancer. She's lured into the city of New York City by Reuben, her nurse, with the promise of pizza, and that of course is going to come back later in the significance within this film. And so while they're there, and she's with Frodo, her comfort animal, the aliens crash on Earth. Now, when that crash happens, it starts us on this journey going essentially from where she's reunited with Frodo in the theater all the way to where Frodo and Eric get on the boat with the help of Sam. Now, like Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, this journey is really unexpected. She's expecting to die any day now. Honestly, based on one of the speeches, she thought she'd be dead already. She had a 2-year prognosis, then a 6-month prognosis. And so, yeah, so she and, Sam this journey was not expected. It was not, in her radar that some disaster was going to happen and that she was going to be essentially become a hero. Now, in the case of this particular journey, this particular version of the Sam and Frodo story, the ring, of course, is Eric. Now, while in the Lord of the Rings, they're delivering the ring to Mordor to be destroyed, in this case, they're delivering the ring, Eric, to the boat that's going to the island so that he will survive. Now, how do we know that Frodo and Eric are going to survive? Well, on that boat is Henri, played by Djimon Hounsou. Now, we've seen him in A Quiet Place Part 2 on the island, and we know that creatures can't swim. So, of course, we know that that boat itself at least makes it to the island, and so we assume that Eric was on it, Frodo was on it, and that they at least survived into A Quiet Place Part 2. But, of course, we know that an alien does attack in that particular film as well, so maybe he was killed during that attack, but hopefully not. Also, as a side note, it's revealed that Samira is an author, and so you would assume is a bibliophile, and that's what we see in the film as well. And so it makes sense that she named her animal Frodo after a literary character. I know people personally who named their pets after Harry Potter characters, so that's very much of a thing. Theme number 2. We're at our most human when we're helping others. Now, at the very beginning of the film, they have Sam do this very interesting poem. Oh, by the way, when I mentioned she's an author, she's a poet, but author. She writes poetry. At the very beginning, she writes this very interesting poem where you kind of see she's given up. Like she doesn't really care. She's very mean to the other people. And again, it's not a judgment in that, she's dying of cancer. But the point is that the softness in her is gone. I'm assuming that softness was there before, and I would think so. But any softness in her is gone, and she's very harsh, very hard-edged. And she's angry because, again, this isn't fair. She's this fairly young person who's dying way too early. And so, you have her, losing a bit of her humanity, not being nice to her fellow people who are also dying. And then she gains it back through this journey. She finds the children who are hiding under the fountain. We know from A Quiet Place 1 that flowing water, the creatures can't hear. And we see that with the main characters in Quiet Place 1, where they're able to talk and kind of express themselves, their anguish over their son, young child's death. We saw that, we know that water does mask their sound. And so she helps those 2 young children. She leads them to the essentially caravan of people walking towards the port. She also, of course, helps Eric. Throughout the film, she's saving the cat, save the cat literary writing technique. She's saving Frodo throughout the whole point, and she's very much a hero. And so that, that journey to help others essentially let her regain her humanity, which actually led her to have what can be considered a good death on her terms at the end. Also, Eric's humanity is really very much affirmed by helping others. Now, of course, he is, dazed and confused after he almost drowns in the subway when we first see him. Of course, Frodo, he finds the ring, finds Eric, and leads him to Sam, and they go on their journey to save Eric. And so, basically, he is traumatized. But then we start to see him regain his sense of self when he basically goes and gets the medicine for Sam. So Sam is down of cancer. She has these patches to essentially help her mitigate the pain. Of course, a very painful death. And so he goes to get her meds, risk his own life to do that because, he cares for her. He wants her to be okay, to not be in pain. We also see it at Patsy's Pizza. That situation, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well, him, doing the magic and trying to give her a little bit of joy before she goes, whether it be at the hands of the creatures or whether it be due to the cancer. And I'll even throw in Djimon Hounsou's Henri character, who's not in there very much, but he does a thing. This is spoiler. He kills a person to save all the people around. Now you could tell this is not who he is. He's not like a soldier. He's not someone who goes out and hurts people. It goes against his very nature. And so he does this thing, in front of his son, but to save them. And it affects him, but he had to do it. And so in that case, he made the sacrifice of his own inner well-being to essentially help others. And lastly, but not least, I'll throw in the first responders. So we see the soldiers, we see the different people who are tasked with helping the survivors. And so those are the individuals who put their own self. I know there's a female soldier who dies to try to help people. And so they put their lives on the line to go and save all the people there. And so, yeah, so that's very much their humanity, putting their own lives at the line. They have families and people at home to help others, many of them, unfortunately, who would have died at the hands of the aliens. Theme number 3. Humans are no longer the dominant species on Earth. Now, specifically didn't say top of the food chain because there's no evidence that these creatures actually eat humans. Now, there are these giant fungus things that we see the creatures eating, and that actually makes sense. One of the overused tropes within science fiction are aliens coming to Earth to eat humans. I'm assuming these aliens' physiology, while they do probably breathe air, based on what we've seen, because one did drown, they won't necessarily eat us. They have their own food. Their chemistry could be very different than us. And so, imagine going to a planet where you have silicon-based life forms. We wouldn't eat them. We might use them for resources, but they're not necessarily something that we would eat. And so the creatures might be very much, they don't care about us as a prey animal. They have their own food. But being that they're blind, and we can tell they're blind because people right in front of them and there's no eyes, maybe that they're, it's like you have a person in a room, in a dark room, they have a weapon, and they hear these things around them that they're afraid of. And so rather than just kind of waiting for them things to grab you, you're striking out against these things, and that's probably what is happening. They're killing whatever is near them because of fear, essentially. And so you have these creatures which are bulletproof, which aren't necessarily vulnerable to a lot of our weapons, and so they are now the dominant species. They take us out pretty easily. They're faster than us, stronger than us, and so now they are at the top of the pecking order on Earth. And along those lines, you see the changes in the behaviors of the humans. They are very much acting like prey animals. They're hiding, so you're hiding in the theater, hiding in the church, hiding in the farmhouse in the earlier movies, hiding, in the little, I forgot wherever the second guy, Cillian Murphy's character was, hiding. We're hiding. We're like, little mammals, and, planet of dinosaurs, hiding from these dangerous creatures. And so we have reverted to be these, even though I don't think they're eating us, prey animals. and we are, very deliberate in our movements. We only go out when we need to. We're very quiet, so not to attract the dominant, large, dangerous animals. We see this with animals in the wild, where essentially they don't go downwind of the creatures, of the predators, because if the predators smell them, they are at risk of being killed. And so that's us. But a downwind in this situation is not making noise that's going to attract the attention of these creatures, which we know kill whatever they hear. Theme number 4. Our priorities change when we're facing imminent death. And so you have Eric, a law student from Kent, England. You have Samira, who is I'm assuming a famous poet, based on that she had her picture on the book or whatever, at least a published poet. And now they're both facing imminent death. And so now the most important thing in the case of Eric was to make sure that Sam is okay, that her pain is mitigated. Taking care of Frodo, that's his purpose now, to make sure that Sam, who sacrificed herself for him, that cat is taken care of. And for Sam, it was very much, she's facing terminal cancer. She just wants some Patsy's pizza. And it makes sense because, once you're facing death, the things that were kind of superfluous, or peripheral, those things that seem so important, they're not important anymore. What's important is that she gets to Harlem and she gets one last taste of that pizza that not only connected her to her childhood, also connected her to her father, who also passed from cancer. Patsy's is a memory. It's a good memory, and she wanted one more of those good memories before she goes. But everyone basically, once they're facing death, whatever was going on in their life isn't important anymore. What's important for the ones who aren't facing cancer is survival. Getting them and their families onto these boats and getting to this island, because again, they know the creatures can't swim. But again, for Samira, it's about, helping others, but also having this one last moment on Earth where she feels absolute joy. By the way, on some of the other things I talk about, my other reviews, I talk about how a good ending is important. This movie's ending, oh my God, almost brings me to tears right now. The fact that she got to choose her time and place of going, she didn't let the cancer get her. Obviously, it's one of those situations where that was a very painful death. That pain thing was going to wear off. And so, having her basically, exposing herself to die a quick death at the hands of that creature beat dying a slow death of cancer. So very much that ending was spot on. And again, her priorities were went from, whatever important, author things that she was doing. Now it's, helping Eric and helping others. And also it's, not letting cancer take her out in this slow, horrific way. Choosing her time and place of death and making that happen. Theme number 5, 9/11.
The whole top came off. And then the smoke, all of a sudden I seen the smoke fall. I was standing next to the lieutenant, and all of a sudden I couldn't see him. We were under the truck. The top came off. I'm taking better than death insurance.
Now, a lot of us who lived through 9/11 can remember exactly where we were when the towers were hit or the towers came down. I was at home living with my mom. I was going to college at the time, but I was living at home to save money. And I remember waking up to seeing the towers. Both towers had already been hit, but one tower was about to fall. And so, you know, the scenes from that day, the people covered in dust, the chaos, the sirens, the first responders trying to help people, all those things are very much in here. And so when I'm watching the beginning of A Quiet Place, and this is the first thing that came to me, was this situation, the explosions, the people, all that chaos is very much reminiscent or indicative of 9/11. Now, similar to the choice of Sam and Frodo as the character names who are going on this journey, I'm assuming that the parallels to 9/11 are deliberate as well. You have again a disaster happening in New York City. You have again, you know, it's unexpected. It's a surprise attack essentially, and so I think that, you know, the cinematographer, the director chose to use images of 9/11. You know, having her face covered in dust when she wipes it off. You know, again, indicative of or very reminiscent of what we saw with 9/11. I think all those were done to kind of evoke that image, evoke that thing in your mind, and it makes sense because again, we're dealing with a disaster movie in New York City. We have a lot of people who do remember that. I teach, so I have a lot of students who don't, who either weren't born or very young, but there's still enough people in the audience who are going to remember that day that's going to evoke those images. And even if you weren't alive during that time, many of y'all have seen the history books, you've seen the images, and so those images from 9/11 will be very much familiar or very much connected or similar to what we saw in the beginning of the movie with the attack on Earth. I'll even go as far as when they're walking to the port. It makes me think of, again, 9/11 when people were essentially walking out of New York City because, again, things were shut down. We didn't know what was happening, and so people essentially were walking, leaving the city. And so in this case, they're walking to the port to get on the boats to go to the island. And with 9/11, they were getting away from the towers or the area with the towers because one, you didn't know if the attack was going to happen, you know, a further attack, but also you didn't know what other buildings were going to fall, potentially killing more people. And so those are the themes that I identified in A Quiet Place Day 1. Now, if you found this video interesting and or informative, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please share this video. And if there are other films or TV shows you want me to break down in the same way, please leave those suggestions in the comment section below. Thank you all for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.